Oh, shit.
According to ESPN's Cleveland Tony Grossi, the full list of demands are $20 million per year, a $10 million staff budget, total authority over the roster, and would like to select his own GM.
That's not a bad thing, especially for somebody like Harbaugh that knows what he's going to need. If I'm going to Cleveland, I know what I need in this room to be able to succeed.
I tell you one thing, though. I know a lot of people are going to want that Ravens job. John Harbaugh let go after 18 years in Baltimore, one of those being Super Bowl champions. This is a move that has, I mean, shoot, Austin, that AFC North Championship game on Sunday Night Football, it was essentially people were saying, whichever coach loses is going to be on the hot seat and could get fired. And it ended up happening, Ravens losing, and John Harbaugh is out. Apparently part of the reasoning, playoff failures, but also the thing is he wanted to run it back with his staff, is what I've heard, and the organization really didn't want to go in that direction. So they decided to part ways. And I mean, it's not that I thought that it wouldn't happen. It's just I'm shocked that they actually did it this season, because I thought it'd be, if it happens again next year, then I was like, okay, they might move on next year. I'm shocked it happened this year.
NFL owners are in full panic mode right now because John Harbaugh just dropped a contract demand list that's breaking the entire league, and it's all centered around one name, Shedeur Sanders. $20 million per year, total roster control, the power to pick his own GM, and a $10 million staff budget. But here's where it gets absolutely insane. These aren't just normal contract demands. These are the demands of a coach who knows exactly what he needs to win with a young franchise quarterback. And multiple sources are now connecting Harbaugh's list directly to the Cleveland Browns and Shedeur Sanders situation. Shannon Sharpe and Chad Johnson just exposed what's really happening behind closed doors. And when you hear the full breakdown of why Harbaugh is demanding these things, you're going to understand that this isn't just about money. This is about a Hall of Fame coach who finally sees the quarterback situation he's been waiting for his entire career.
Who speculates on what he's heard about Harbaugh's prerequisites to even be interested in your job.
Okay.
$20 million a year.
Not a problem.
Not a problem. $10 million assistant coach budget.
Not a problem.
Okay. Total authority over the roster. And also would like to select his own guy to lean on, personnel guy.
Okay, so
there's this thing in the NFL called Black Monday, and that is where you see an abundance of coaches, coordinators get fired because the season's over for most of these teams, and decisions need to be made. None of them had the history that John Harbaugh had, and you're hearing a lot of people on both sides of the fence. One side saying it was time, he should have been fired a long time ago, John Harbaugh had to go, and there's some people that's saying, well, he's been there for 18 years. He's a Super Bowl winning coach. He's one of the best coaches in football. The Ravens, there was a lot of reasons that the Ravens underachieved this year, and John Harbaugh is not one of them. Let me address it all. Do I think that John Harbaugh is a good coach? Yes. The fact that you can be somewhere for 18 years is incredible. The fact that he and Mike Tomlin were the two longest tenured coaches.
Look, I need you to understand something right off the bat. When a Super Bowl winning coach puts out a list of demands this specific, this detailed, this aggressive, he's not just throwing darts at a board. He's sending a message to every team in the league. If you want me, this is what it's going to take. And if you're not willing to give me what I need, then don't waste my time. Shannon Sharpe and Chad Johnson broke this down on Nightcap, and the information came straight from ESPN's Cleveland insider Tony Grossi. That's not some random blogger. That's someone who's connected directly to the Browns organization, and when he drops a report like this, you better believe it's coming from inside the building. Let me run through Harbaugh's demands one more time, so you understand the magnitude of what we're dealing with. $20 million per year. That would put him in the same category as Andy Reid, the only coach currently making that kind of money. And as Shannon pointed out, Andy Reid has earned every penny with 6 Super Bowl appearances, 3 wins, and 6 straight AFC championship games. Harbaugh's resume, 1 Super Bowl win back in that's over a decade ago. But here's the thing, Harbaugh knows his value. He knows that in today's NFL market, especially with teams desperate for proven leadership, he can command that number. And more importantly, he knows that the teams willing to pay it are the teams desperate enough to give him everything else on his list. $10 million staff budget. Shannon broke this down perfectly. You're going to need to pay your offensive coordinator $1 million, maybe $1.5 million. Your defensive coordinator, same thing, possibly up to $2 million depending on who you get. Then you've got position coaches, quality control guys, analysts, the whole operation. $10 million sounds like a lot until you realize what it actually takes to build a championship caliber coaching staff. Total authority over the roster. Not some input, not collaborative decision-making. Total authority over the final 53-man roster. Shannon said it perfectly. He didn't say, "I'd like to have some input." He says, total authority over the final 53. That means Harbaugh gets to decide who stays and who goes. No front office interference, no owner meddling. His team, his decisions. And finally, and this might be the most important one, he wants to select his own GM, not work with the existing GM, not have a say in who the GM is. He wants to pick his own general manager. Now, most people hear these demands and think Harbaugh's out of his mind. They think he's asking for too much. They think no team in their right mind would give one coach that much power. But Shannon and Ocho saw it differently, and when you understand the context, you'll see it differently too. Ocho dropped the comparison that makes this whole thing make sense. He said the Cleveland Browns are in almost the same situation, with Deshaun Watson, where they were desperate to have a quarterback who had done what he had done previously with the Houston Texans. Stop right there. Let that sink in. The Browns were so desperate for a franchise quarterback that they threw everything, and I mean everything, at Deshaun Watson. They gave up multiple first-round picks. They gave him the biggest guaranteed contract in NFL history. They restructured their entire organization around acquiring him. And you know what happened? It blew up in their faces spectacularly. Watson got injured, played terribly when he was on the field, and the whole thing became the worst trade in NFL history. But here's the key insight Ocho had. Now you have the opportunity with John Harbaugh to get a winning coach, one that needs full control because he understands what he needs as a team to be able to compete. The Browns learned their lesson with Watson. They learned that desperation leads to bad decisions. So this time around, if they're going to go big, they're going to do it right. They're going to give the coach, not the front office, not the owner, complete control to build the team the way it needs to be built. And that's where Shedeur Sanders comes into play. See, everyone's been talking about whether Harbaugh would go to the Giants or the Dolphins or stay in Baltimore. But nobody's connecting the dots on why Cleveland makes the most sense for what Harbaugh actually wants. Shannon mentioned that the Giants have the most stable quarterback situation, with whoever they draft. But think about what Harbaugh actually needs. He needs a young quarterback he can mold from day one. He needs a quarterback with elite talent who hasn't been ruined by bad coaching yet. He needs a quarterback who's hungry, coachable, and ready to buy into a championship culture. That's Shedeur Sanders. Now before you jump in the comments saying Shedeur's not ready, or he's got too much baggage, or whatever narrative you've been fed, let me break down why Harbaugh's demands actually prove he's the perfect coach for Shedeur. First, the $20 million salary. Why does that matter for Shedeur? Because it shows Harbaugh is betting his entire reputation and financial future on this next job. He's not taking a discount, he's not doing anyone a favor. He's saying, I know I can win, and I'm worth what you're going to pay me. That's the kind of confidence Shedeur needs around him. Not a coach who's unsure. Not a coach who's taking the job because he has no other options. A coach who knows he can develop a young quarterback into a champion. Second, the $10 million staff budget. You know what that means? It means Harbaugh can go out and hire the absolute best offensive coordinator in the business. Someone who specializes in developing young quarterbacks. Someone who understands modern passing concepts. Someone who can build an offense around Shedeur's strengths, his quick release, his accuracy, his ability to process information pre-snap. Remember, Harbaugh won his Super Bowl with Joe Flacco, not exactly an offensive juggernaut, but he knows what it takes to support a quarterback and put him in position to succeed. With a $10 million staff budget, he can hire coordinators who specialize in quarterback development in a way Baltimore never could afford. Third, total roster control. This is huge for Shedeur because it means Harbaugh can build the team around protecting his young quarterback. He can draft offensive linemen, he can sign veteran receivers, he can construct a running game that takes pressure off Shedeur while he's learning. He doesn't have to fight with a GM who wants to draft defensive players or skill position guys that don't fit the system. Every single roster decision can be made with one question in mind. Does this help Shedeur Sanders develop into a franchise quarterback? And fourth, selecting his own GM. This is where it gets really interesting because if Harbaugh can pick his own GM, he's going to pick someone who shares his vision for building around a young quarterback. Someone who understands that you don't just throw a rookie into the fire and hope for the best. Someone who's willing to invest resources, draft picks, free agent money, coaching staff, into creating the perfect environment for quarterback development. Shannon made a point later in the conversation that's absolutely critical. He said, Harbaugh knows in order to win, you've got to have a quarterback. You're not going to win a Super Bowl like you did before, where you get Flacco, he gets hot down the stretch, and he plays great for 4 or 5 games, and then you have an outstanding defense to back him up. That's over. You need that guy. Listen to that carefully. Harbaugh knows the league has changed. He knows you can't win with game managers anymore. He knows you need an elite quarterback to compete for championships in today's NFL. So when Harbaugh looks at the landscape and sees Cleveland with Shedeur Sanders, what does he see? He sees a young quarterback with first-round talent who fell in the draft because of perception, not ability. He sees a quarterback who's been battle-tested at Colorado under his father's coach. He sees a quarterback who's used to pressure, used to media attention, used to high expectations. He hasn't picked up bad habits from years of playing in a terrible system. That's the dream scenario for a coach like Harbaugh. Give me a talented young quarterback, give me total control to build the team around him, and give me the resources to hire the best staff in football. That's not a rebuild, that's an opportunity. Now I know what some of you are thinking, but the Giants have a better situation. They've got a defense, they've got cap space, they've got the 3rd pick in the draft. Sure, maybe, but you know what the Giants don't have? They don't have the same level of desperation Cleveland has. They don't have an owner who just learned the hard way that you can't cheap out on building a winning culture. They don't have a front office that's finally ready to step back and let a proven coach run the show. Cleveland does. Jimmy Haslam has spent the last decade interfering, meddling, firing coaches after 1 or 2 years, and creating a toxic environment that no elite coach wanted to touch. But the Deshaun Watson disaster changed everything. It humbled him. It showed him that his way doesn't work. So when John Harbaugh walks in with this list of demands that would have been laughed at 5 years ago in Cleveland, Haslam's gonna look at it and say, you know what, let's do it. Let's give him everything he wants, because clearly our way hasn't worked. And here's the beautiful irony in all of this. The same people who are killing Harbaugh for his outrageous demands are the same people who spent the last decade saying Cleveland needs stability, needs to give coaches power, needs to build the right way. Well, that's exactly what Harbaugh's asking for. Stability through a long-term contract, power through roster control and GM selection, building the right way through investing in a top-tier coaching staff. The only difference is now there's an actual price tag attached to it, and suddenly everyone's uncomfortable. But Shedeur Sanders shouldn't be uncomfortable. Shedeur should be excited, because if Harbaugh gets these demands met, it means Cleveland is finally serious about building a championship organization. It means they're finally willing to invest real resources into developing their young quarterback, instead of just hoping he figures it out on his own. Think about what Shedeur's been through. He played at Jackson State, where they didn't have the facilities, the resources, or the national respect. He transferred to Colorado, where they were rebuilding from scratch, and he had to carry the entire offense on his back. He got drafted by Cleveland, where the organization was in chaos, and nobody knew if they were committed to him or still holding out hope for Deshaun Watson. And now he might get coached by a Super Bowl winner who's demanding total control, specifically so he can build the perfect environment for his quarterback to succeed. That's not a problem, that's a blessing. Shannon and Ocho kept mentioning that Harbaugh needs a different voice, and that the players need to hear another message. They were talking about Baltimore, but the same logic applies in reverse. Shedeur needs to hear from a coach who's won at the highest level. He needs to hear from someone who's developed quarterbacks in the NFL. He needs to hear from someone who has the credibility and the authority to demand excellence. The Ravens are on the hook for $34 million of Harbaugh's current contract, which means Cleveland would only need to add about $6 million to get to that $20 million number. That's nothing for an organization that just paid Deshaun Watson $230 million guaranteed. Shannon said it perfectly. You just gotta add 6 to the pot. That's it. You good to go. And if adding $6 million to the pot gets you a Hall of Fame coach who's willing to bet his entire legacy on developing your young quarterback, you write that check so fast your hand cramps. The $10 million staff budget after what Cleveland spent on the Watson disaster, that's pocket change. Total roster control, after years of front office interference destroying coaches, that's exactly what they need. selecting his own After Andrew Berry survived the Watson trade somehow, Cleveland needs a fresh start anyway. Everything Harbaugh's demanding is exactly what Cleveland needs to finally get it right. And everything Harbaugh's demanding is exactly what Shedeur Sanders needs to reach his potential. So when you see these reports about Harbaugh's outrageous demands, don't think of them as obstacles. Think of them as the blueprint for finally building a championship organization in Cleveland, with Shedeur Sanders as the foundation. Because here's the reality nobody wants to admit. Shedeur's got the talent. He's got the work ethic. He's got the football IQ. What he doesn't have yet is the coaching infrastructure to maximize all of that. John Harbaugh's demands aren't about ego. They're about ensuring he has everything he needs to turn a talented young quarterback into a perennial Pro Bowler. They're about making sure that if he's going to stake his reputation on this next job, he's got all the tools necessary to succeed. And if Cleveland's smart, if they've learned anything from the Watson disaster, from the coaching carousel, from 2 decades of failure, they'll give Harbaugh every single thing he's asking for. Because the alternative is going back to the same cycle. Hire a cheap coach, give him no power, interfere from the front office. Watch it fail, fire everyone, start over. Shedeur Sanders deserves better than that. John Harbaugh is demanding better than that. And Cleveland, whether they know it yet or not, needs exactly what Harbaugh's offering. So here's my question for you. If you're Shedeur Sanders, would you rather play for a coach making $8 million with no real power who's going to get fired in 2 years? Or would you rather play for a coach making $20 million with total control who's betting his Hall of Fame legacy on turning you into a champion? If you want to stay locked in on every development in the John Harbaugh coaching saga and how it affects Shedeur Sanders' future in Cleveland, hit that subscribe button right now. We're bringing you the inside story that connects all the dots everyone else is missing. Drop a comment and let me know. Are Harbaugh's demands reasonable for what Cleveland needs, or is he asking for too much? Let's talk about it.